Ukraine and the U.S. are closing in on a minerals deal, and the details are still being hammered out. But President Trump says an agreement could come as soon as this week. Alex Hogan live in Kyiv with more. Hi, Alex.
Hi, Dana. So Ukrainian officials say that nearly all of the key details are almost finalized. And when I asked Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky what else he needed to see in this deal in order to sign it, part of the answer was a meeting with President Trump, which is something we heard from President Trump yesterday, saying that that meeting with Zelensky will happen either this week or next. So Ukrainian officials here say that so far these conversations and negotiations have been constructive. Ukraine estimates that 5% of the world's critical raw minerals are here, and the U.S. wants those to reduce its dependency on China. While the Ukrainian government says it wants to work with the U.S. on this, some politicians are arguing that it should not come as a reimbursement for what they saw as military aid granted by Congress.
I'm absolutely in support of having American companies here and working together and producing these minerals. So you just can't now say, okay, now this is after 3 years, the bill for this.
Remembrance events took place across the country yesterday for the 3-year mark of the war. Ukrainians uncertain about the country's future tell me that they are begging Americans not to give up on their fight.
Democracy was always a priority in America, in its values and its fight with terrorism. But now the main terrorist is Russia.
I'm begging them, give us weapon, because I want my children will live.
Another night of heavy bombardment, with Ukrainian officials saying that Russia fired cruise missiles overnight and as many as 200 attack drones in what has been an increasing show of force by Russia. Dana.
All right, Alex Hogan, thank you.
So, let's get the lowdown. Dana, Republican Senator Bill Hagerty out of Tennessee, member of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. Sir, good morning to you. Thanks for coming back. Two specific things to get to. Number one, the cost of the war. Here was the president on that just yesterday.
The cost and burden of securing the peace must be borne by the nations of Europe, not alone by the United States. The United States has put up far more aid for Ukraine than any other nation. At some point, we should equalize, but hopefully we won't have to worry about that.
Okay, so Senator, here's what we have. U.S. $122 billion in funding, the EU $52 billion, Germany $30, France $15, United Kingdom $15. Do you get the sense that we are that close to a deal for a ceasefire that would eventually end this war? Are we on the precipice of that?
Bill, I certainly do get that sense. Look, President Macron flew here yesterday. You're going to see Keir Starmer from the UK here later this week. Zelensky's trying to get to the United States. I think we're on the precipice of a deal. And Scott Bessent said yesterday, our Treasury Secretary, that he feels we're on the 1-yard line. So I think we're about to get there. President Trump wants to see an end to the carnage. He's certainly changed the dynamic and the conversation around all of this, from Joe Biden's blank check, as long as it takes, to bringing into this now. And I think it's coming. Well,
Keir Starmer, who leads the UK, earlier today said they're going to up the ante on the defense spending in the UK starting the year 2026. Another topic at the UN. I did not expect to see these countries in the same group, but we aligned with North Korea and Russia and Belarus on a resolution that does not necessarily blame Moscow for starting the war. How do you think about that?
Well, I think what President Trump again is doing is he's shifting the conversation completely. He's trying to get to a deal with Russia. He's not just continuing the Joe Biden process of sticking a stick in Russia's eye. You see the European leaders that want to just continue down this path. What President Trump wants to do is bring an end to this now, and he's trying to bring resolution to this. I think what we're seeing is a shifting sands. Again, you see these European leaders coming to the United States. Again, I feel we're at the precipice of a deal. President Trump is trying to make something happen here, not just go back to talking points that haven't worked in the past.
Got it. One more question on that. Trump said, I would rather not explain it now, but it's sort of self-evident. Should it be self-evident that you have to suck up to Putin in order to get him to the table and keep him there?
Bill, I wouldn't put it in terms of sucking up to Putin. What I would say is that the president is actually trying to shift the conversation. President Trump has not lifted any sanctions on Putin. In fact, he's talking about getting back in the energy business, putting Keystone Pipeline back in. It was Joe Biden that killed the Keystone XL pipeline and okayed Nord Stream 2, which funded Russia's war efforts. So I think what you're seeing is still plenty of pressure on Vladimir Putin, but President Trump, again, is shifting the dialogue right now, trying to get to a deal.
I want to read this. Truth Social. I am in serious discussions, he wrote yesterday, with President Putin of Russia concerning the ending of the war and also major economic development transactions. Talks are proceeding very well. Just a final comment on that. When you think you have to guard a border with a front line that is at least 600 miles in length.
Yeah, it's a situation where I think President Trump is trying to think about this differently. He's talking about economic development. He's talking about getting our interests to align more economically. There are critical minerals in Russia, critical minerals in Ukraine. All of this could benefit the United States. China is licking its chops right now. I think President Trump sees that as well and wants to make certain that the United States taxpayer benefits from what comes out of this, as opposed to the CCP.
Bill Hagerty, come on back soon, okay? Senator, nice to talk to you today, okay? Yeah, thank you very much from the Hill.